What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to Season 3, Episode 37 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Osland. Will Updike has incredibly slow internet in rural Montana, so he is not joining us, but he does send his love from Montana. Adam looks like he's in rural Montana right now. We are Clips and Dip. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for subscribing. To everyone who was on the live stream after the game on Thursday when my power went out, thanks for hanging out until that happened over youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. We are going to talk the Clippers splitting in Dallas and then preview what's probably going to be a pretty difficult game against the Grizzlies. But before we get into that, Adam, how the heck are you doing? It's Christmas week. People are bopping around town. How you doing, bud?
I mean, I have better internet in my car than Will does in Montana. That's pretty crazy.
Sure.
I guess I'm doing
Yeah.
all right.
All
got my
things considered.
got my new Clippers beanie, the light blue clips.
Nice. There we
Ordered
go.
this. Yeah, I'm in the
That's a good
spirit.
buy.
I love the light blue stuff they got going on with the City Edition stuff this season. So I'm into it.
I think the knit hat looks good. I will say the like fitted hat they have that has in that color, the light blue, kind of looks like something that people would have worn at trailer parks in Montana. Just that's all I'm getting from it. It's just the same. It's just the same vibe. There's nothing wrong with it. Just not my cup of tea. Let's get right into it. The Clippers split in Dallas. They win on Thursday. They looked not the same on Saturday when they played the Mavs. There was no Kyrie or Luka in game one. Kyrie was good to go in game two, but he only went 6 for 25 and wasn't exactly torching them offensively, which was good to see. How did we feel about this split? There were some concerning things I maybe want to bring up, but how did you feel? I think we all were happy with the split, right? That's kind of what we set out when we did the preview episode.
Yes, but we also didn't know at that time if Luka was going to play. He didn't play in either game. Kyrie missed one of the games. And when you contextualize it and Kyrie goes 6 for 25 like that in game two, that's a winnable game.
Yeah.
That's just a game where you could have gotten greedy and won both in Dallas. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that respect, but they at least are not going to get swept on this road trip no matter what happens against Memphis on Monday. And there is something to celebrate there, but there are concerns with this team right now and James Harden.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring that up. I didn't know whether to start. I have concerns about Norm Powell too, but they're not as big as the Harden one. So in game two, Norman Harden go 5 for 20 from three. Saw this great stat from Law Murray. The Clippers are 13-3 when they shoot better than 35% from three, and 3-10 when they don't. Are you concerned about the Harden turnovers? Because I was looking at his last 4 games, and he has 26 turnovers over the last 4 games, which is not good. And to me, points towards fatigue.
He just had 8 days off.
No, that's why I'm concerned about it. Like, it's building up or something, because these aren't normal turnovers. He's not getting you know what I mean? Like, we're not watching radically different defense against him.
I'm just saying, like, he just had 8 days off. How can it be fatigue? Like, if anything, I would think it would be rust. Like, I am concerned that, I don't know, he was doing better in the turnover department before.
Yes.
He didn't play for 8 straight days. He only missed one game, the game against the Houston Rockets during that time because of the Clippers' crazy schedule. But I know Coach Lue talked about him looking slower last night, but I don't know. 6.5 turnovers per game the last 4 games, where only one of them, I think he had 4 or less. Mm-hmm. That's brutal. 9 turnovers, 6 turnovers, 7 turnovers last night. And it's not like he's piling up a ton of assists during this time, by the way. It's not like he's had, 15 assists to 7 turnovers or anything like that.
Right.
So all of it has been worrisome. And I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it is fatigue for a guy who got that much time off, which would be even more alarming, I guess, because he got all that time off at All-Star break, and now this is still happening. I hope there's some rhythm timing thing going on right now, but it looks like it's going to be a tough game against the Memphis defense for him because they have plenty of guys they can throw on him. So we're going to find something out tomorrow, and then they have another 3 days off. So I don't know. I think the bigger issue is they still don't have a more reliable secondary ball handler. And we've talked about KPJ a little bit, but there isn't a real guy that's an obvious choice to take more of the burden off of James Harden that you can depend on right now for this Clippers team.
Not only that you can kind of depend on, excuse me, from a ball handling perspective, from a shooting perspective, right? Like if it's Norm initiating the offense, obviously you have to respect the shooting. If Chris Dunn or KPJ are initiating the offense, no team's defense has to respect either of those guys outside shooting right now, which makes it, even harder for them to initiate the offense because of that. Until Kawhi comes back, which hopefully is in 5 days, we kind of just have to live with the Harden, not growing pains, aches and pains, I guess, just as we go on, trying to get his body a little more right. I don't know. It just doesn't feel they're getting less and less these types of games, right? These high turnover games, they're getting less and less easier to shove aside and not worry about.
Yeah, the further you get into the season, the more evidence you get. These aren't, a fluke. This is likely what we've been talking about all season long from the beginning. A guy who is asked to do far too much. His workload is taxing.
It's a lot.
And it's not going to improve, I don't think, until Kawhi comes back and can be on the floor consistently for this team. Now, his outside shooting has gotten better. He's been well over 40% over the last 10, 15 games or so. So his three-pointers have been falling more regularly. But the turnovers can be a sign of fatigue. It can be mental lapses. It can be just miscues out there for a team that has to be so fine with it, with making, passes that get the defense off balance, that they're trying to thread the needle a little bit too much and they're turning into turnovers. But it's mostly just James right now having the excess of turnovers. Now, he has the ball in his hand the most.
Sure, he is the system. Yeah.
So it makes sense, but they've been of the lackadaisical variety the last few games now. I haven't enjoyed watching that.
I agree. Well said. That's kind of what gets me with is it just tiredness? Like that's, the lackadaisical turnovers where are you just kind of like having a brain fart there or something? But I mean, maybe they make a move. Maybe they make a move at the trade deadline for someone else who can back up, but I don't know if that's in the cards because we're kind of strapped salary-wise.
Yeah, you wonder if they can wait that long. The Colling Sexton rumors are out there, and Kevin Porter Jr., it's still up and down. It's still a wild ride. It hasn't gotten, more steady or more balanced with him. It feels like you don't know what you're going to get from game to game, quarter to quarter, possession to possession. I understand why they're doing it. They don't really have many better options going on, and Bones Highland's clearly not going to get much run. So that's the guy they kind of have to roll with as the backup playmaker. But I think that's the biggest deficiency on this team right now. It's not a power forward thing. It is not having a secondary ball handler, a more traditional playmaker type that can just ease the burden with James Harden.
Yeah, and we pinpointed that coming into the season. It was a gamble to have KPJ as the backup. Everyone kind of knew, no matter how much you love KPJ, that it was going to be, bringing a guy in who hadn't played at that level in a while. That's difficult to be your true backup point guard there. He did have 19 points, which, hey, prevented the last game from being a blowout, but we'll get into that later.
I don't know if it did, honestly. Like, it was a minus 16 in his minutes. I did not feel like those 19 points were impactful. I don't like going off one game plus minus numbers, but that was one I was watching very closely, and it didn't feel like a lot of those buckets led to Clippers runs or the Clippers actually gaining much of an advantage. I'm not trying to be overly harsh, but I was talking about this earlier on Clippers Talk. He's a minus 31 on the season in over 500 minutes. They're not winning his minutes very often. If you're chasing him, hopefully improving as the season goes along, I get it because he's talented.
And we need it.
But yeah, he hasn't turned much of a corner yet either with his play. It's still erratic. It's still up and down.
Yeah, it felt like he had at least one foul that kind of helped spark a Mavs little mini run in that second game, where you see him kind of, I don't know.
He had 4 turnovers too.
Yes,
so
he had a lot of turnovers. It's just one of those things where he's a below average backup point guard, and that's where we're at right now. The defense is better than Bones. We need it. Sometimes he crashes the boards well, but your backup point's shooting 26% from 3. I'm not saying it's the end all be all of his game, but that's not ideal.
I think it's fair to say at this point that if Bones Highland had gotten just as many minutes and just as much of a leash as Kevin Porter Jr. so far this season, if he got the KPJ role, things wouldn't be any worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'd still be at concerned for the backup point guard position.
Yeah, but maybe Bones actually could be a little bit better. Like maybe the floor is exactly the same as what it's been with KPJ, and maybe Bones with this big of an opportunity like KPJ has gotten would have actually been a little bit better.
It is interesting, and there are some people who, they champion the things that KPJ does other than scoring. Which, hey, I said this on the live stream before the LADWP cut my stream off because they're Lakers fans. He had a great contest at the rim in the first Mavs game. Bamba, Batum, and KPJ, all three had really good contests right at the rim to break up easy baskets for the Mavs, which I liked. But the shooting's just difficult. I want to ask you how I feel like we're on a bit of a Norman Powell roller coaster right now when it comes to outside shooting. And I don't know if it's just him getting back into the rhythm of things, but his last 5 games from 3-point, here are Norm Powell's percentages. And I loved everything that Norm has done. I think the Clippers should keep Norm for all the people who are like pitching that we should trade Norm for some big swing. Here's his last 5 games, 3-point percentage wise: 12%, 30%, 71%, 50%, 27%. We're kind of getting into this we're in the middle of this kind of min-max mode with Norm Powell, which makes things difficult for the Clippers, just consistency of results wise.
I don't put a lot into shot numbers like that when it's on so little volume. Like, for instance, you look at a game where he goes 3 of 10 from 3. Man, he went 30% from 3. He makes one more and he's at 40%. Like, right. I don't put a lot into those numbers. I don't think it's that meaningful, to be honest. That's kind of how I look at it, because overall, his last 7 games, he's 44% from 3. Like, the numbers even out, they average out.
Right.
And they often look bumpy when you look at individual game logs when it comes to 3-point shooting, because you're typically only taking 10 shots at most or somewhere around there. And some games it's going to be less than that. So making one shot or missing one shot can swing something 10, 15, 20% sometimes.
That's fair. You look at the teams it's been against. He had the great game against the Mavs. He was 4 for 8, which is awesome. Second game against the Mavs, not super solid. Nuggets and Rockets, just teams that are in that echelon of very good playoff teams. I hope it evens out. There's nothing to do about it other than just hope it evens out, because who else is going to be taking, and who else do we want to be taking these threes during this time right now? I thought Zoo had 2 good games in Dallas. The refs were letting a lot of shit go in game 2. He had his wrist wrapped. He mentioned the physicality of the Mavs. Were the Clippers just too tired on Saturday? Or it just didn't seem like they were. The Mavs were incredibly physical, I guess. And maybe the Clippers were worried about the refs or something, but I think it was pretty apparent that second game.
The Mavs did outworked them in that second game,
Yeah.
which we don't see happen very often. So maybe that puts, I don't know, it amplifies the loss a little bit because the Clippers got beat at their own game,
Totally.
and that doesn't feel
Good
great.
point.
But I do think some of this has to be a tip of the cap or beanie to the Dallas Mavericks with how well they played defensively
Good team.
and how they adjusted to Ivica Zubac playing so good on Thursday night. And he was seeing more doubles and there was more attention going his way, which led to, I didn't check the Sport VU camera data, but it felt like the Clippers did. While they were missing a lot of threes, I want to say a lot of them were pretty good shots and wide open, and they were creating them off the fact that the Mavs' attention to detail when it came to Ivica Zubac opened things up. The problem was the Clippers didn't make them pay for it because they just kept missing. They were under 30% heading into the fourth quarter, where they ended up going, I think, 4 of 6 from three. So it kind of skewed the numbers a little bit by the end of the game. But they were miserable from the outside overall. And if just more of those shots go down, and it's just, that was 8 minutes at the end of the second quarter. So the majority of the second quarter.
Right.
They scored just 8 points. And they miss a ton of shots. They get down by 14 at the half. Like, that's kind of the game right there. Like, you don't get down by 14 there. You just hit a couple more shots and you're down by 5 or 6 at the half. It's a different game. But some of the same stuff that's been bugging me with Ivica Zubac not getting the basketball definitely existed in that game last night. Because when he comes out and has that 7-0 run by himself, or 7 straight points for the Clippers in the third,
grabbing boards, that was such a cool sequence to watch. He was just like, I'm going to be in the right place and I'm going to make things happen. It was awesome to, I was listening to it. It was awesome to hear Carlo call that run.
Because he had to self-create it, and 2 of them were on putbacks off of misses, probably from 3, and then 1 was off a nice pass from Norman Powell, a feed underneath where he throws it down. It's like, they call a timeout, they get back out there, and there's a play in the next possession or 2 after Norm hits some free throws where Zoo is running the floor hard, straight to the rim. And instead of going to him, he beat his man down the floor. They settle for a far side corner 3 from Derrick Jones Jr., who misses, as everybody was missing. It's like, you have to reward him. That is the perfect situation to reward your big man, because I think he had just gotten the rebound that led to that transition break. Like, he was being the more physical player, or at least matching the physicality of the Dallas Mavericks and doing the little things and scrapping out there. And that guy is not the one who ends up touching the basketball on the other end. That type of stuff does bother me.
Especially in a scenario where you need the points, right? Like, take the 2. We're not shooting well. Let's take the 2. Maybe it's some overthinking, but and again, I want to also point out the refs were letting, as they do against the Mavs and Zubac, he's swatting gnats down there. Like, he's getting destroyed. Basically, like, he's getting hit a bunch. He didn't pop up on the injury report, which is great because he had that wrist taped after the game. So he's not on the injury report, but just kind of annoying. You mentioned Derrick Jones Jr. Felt really good to see him back out there. Game 1 of this series, of this mini series, is exactly why the Clippers got Derrick Jones Jr. Game 2, just, maybe he's just getting back into it a little bit. But I was incredibly happy to see Derrick Jones Jr. back out for the Clips.
Yeah, he was awesome. Obviously, in game 1, he hit the kill shot at the end and blew a kiss to the crowd afterwards. He had a great sequence. He had 5 straight points for the Clippers at the end of the first half in game 1. He made the most of his 20 minutes for sure.
Yeah.
There was a little something extra there for the Dallas Mavericks who let him go. And you could tell he got up for that game, and I'm sure there was some added motivation to come back because they were going to be in Dallas and he wanted to show up. And I love that about him. Like, just like Chris Dunn, just like a lot of guys on this team who have felt slighted in some way or shape or form by an NBA team or just the NBA in general giving up on them. In the case of Chris Dunn, I guess, they have a lot to prove. And Derrick Jones Jr. has outperformed his contract all season long, and they need what he provides. And he did it in game 1. He was really good.
I remember when the contract came out, people were like, oh, it seems like the Clippers had to do a slight overpay. And I'm like, not really, not with the cap going up. Like, it's not like he's making an absurd amount of money. He's a starting level guy who's doing everything the Clippers wanted for like what, 11 mil a year.
The one thing I was worried about is if they bought high because of his 3-point shooting in the playoffs last year on like 60 shots.
Right.
And he had never shot, I think, better than 34% or something like that in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And I was worried coming into this year for this to really be a slam dunk of a contract. He's got to continue to get better from three. And so far, so good in that area.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Hope he kind of, just hits more of his stride against the Grizzlies. Final point before we get into this Clippers Grizzlies preview. We saw the duality of what this Clippers bench can giveth and taketh away in Dallas, which is something that we've kind of been, I don't know if harping on feels too strong. We've been trying to make people aware of these last couple games. We talked about it against the Nuggets, how we were a little worried about the bench. But we saw like Amir was phenomenal in game one. It was perfect Amir Coffee basketball. Wasn't there in game two. It took KPJ having the bench was horrible in game two. Like everyone other than KPJ couldn't score. It was just a nightmare. I cannot stress how much I'm looking forward to the Clippers having a full roster to play with. When you add Terrence Mann into that bench, it just knocks everyone down. When then you add Kawhi, it knocks everyone down again. It makes the roster look so much more, I don't know if complete's the right word, but manageable for Ty Lue. So we don't have to run out some of these lineups where it's just a pure gamble if you're going to tread water or just sink completely.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely solidify things for the Clippers once they get healthy. Hopefully that happens. There have been so many teams banged up so far this season. Like it's crazy. Even with the Clippers not having Kawhi all season long, I'm like, they've kind of been fortunate with injuries so far. Even though they've had Terrence miss 7 games, DJ's been out some. Terrence has been out, of course. I still feel like it could be worse. I guess that's maybe what we typically deal with. Worse.
Could be the Pels, right? Like, or the Magic. Like
Yeah. The Magic just lose Mo Wagner now. It's like crazy. So I do think that's going to give a nice bump to the bench unit and make them look like a much more complete roster out there where people aren't, after losses screaming that we need to make this move or that move. We aren't deep enough, or we need to fill this part of the roster, or somebody needs this trait. It's like, well, they're missing key guys right now that help them in those areas. So, yeah, I can't wait. Get healthy, guys, please.
I know. I have like no analysis for the bench other than like, I guess they need to make their shots more consistently spread out through the guys. Like Bamba was great in his second stint of game one when he played that third to fourth quarter. That was like, he was physical. Every other shift outside of that, it was just like, okay, yeah, no, this terrifies me for meaningful basketball minutes. There's just no consistency.
It's what we heard about all summer, what we've known about Mo Bamba. It's the lack of motor. When he has it and when he doesn't. He had it the second stint in that game. He didn't the first stint. I thought he was poor in game two overall. The level of activity is just not where it needs to be from an energy aspect. And that's all you have to do. Be a rim protector, be a rim runner. That's all you're asking from a backup center typically in today's NBA. And if he hits threes, great, but he hasn't so far as a member of the Clippers. He's been missing. What is he at? Below 30%?
He's well below. He's at 23%. And it seems like some of the threes, he's in the corner. So it's like, so this is something that they're either telling him to do or he's just doing, where they're fine. Like every single look he gets from the corner is open, obviously, because why would the defense commit a guy to standing there? So it's like, that's another thing that makes the bench all wonky, where it's like you have this weird stretch five who is bad at shooting. Like I was critical of Daniel Tice's shooting. Daniel Tice made a lot more threes than Mo Bamba did, and like always had the motor, right? Like,
I guess based off track record, he's due to start hitting. I mean, he's taken almost 800 threes, I think, in the NBA.
Yeah.
And he's been a 36% 3-point shooter.
39% last year.
Yeah, he should be better than this. So maybe they're just betting on the odds that it turns around. So keep shooting them. It's the only way to get out of this funk. And that would help the team out. But regardless, that has nothing to do with his defensive activity out there.
Or
that
rebound. Yeah, like it feels pretty pick and choose for him right now, which again is something that you brought up we've heard about. So I don't know. All in all, they get the split in Dallas. At this point, with who the Clippers have out, I don't care who we play. I said it in the post-game stream. I'm like, it always feels good to beat Dallas. Splitting, expected. Am I worried? Sure. But we need the wins right now. Everything's so tight in the Western Conference.
I just think regardless of who comes back, there's a legitimate void right now to me when it comes to just having a more traditional backup point guard. It doesn't even have to be traditional. Anybody who's comfortable with creating for others and getting their own.
Yeah, I would add center to that too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I guess I just worry less because
we can do Nico at the 5 or
yeah, like they're going to go small. They'll have Kawhi at the 5 at times.
Mm-hmm.
And
Terrence,
even when the center is, bad, sometimes like it still doesn't affect the game as much. There's still a big body out there.
Right.
But
if they're
not
trying
having a guy to spell James Harden is a bigger long-term thing to me because, as you mentioned, if he looks tired now and he just had 8 days off, what's going on? They could use somebody, and I like Colin Sexton a lot. If they could figure out a way to nab him from Utah, that'd be great.
What's the I'm sure someone will send us this. The salary, what's he making?
He's like 18 million and then 19 next year. It's similar to Norm's contract, kind of. And he's really efficient.
I love Collin, and it fits what the Clippers are doing right now. He's a guy who Van Gundy with Colin Sexton and Chris Dunn. Are you shitting me? Like, come on now. That would be he's at 18-3 and then 19 next year. And then he's unrestricted.
If you could get him for
PJ Tucker, Bones. We don't have really anything else.
I don't know.
Sure. I mean,
would they have to include Man?
They'd have to include something, I think. Some kind of player value.
Not just a second.
Not just a second and not just Bones who.
Yeah. Because any other team could probably offer more.
Right.
He's good. Like, his only problem is he's undersized.
Yeah.
I was texting my buddy Bob Smith, who's a big Cavaliers fan, and obviously he was there before being in that big trade with Utah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how bad of a defender is he? And I was like, he basically said he's a try-hard guy. He's just limited.
Right. He tries incredibly hard on he's like any undersized point guard in the NBA who gets real time, which is he tries his ass off on defense. Like,
I'm good with that. It doesn't sound like he doesn't have a reputation of being matchup hunted all the time. I do think that's problematic if you had him in the starting lineup.
Right.
And that's been the issue and why teams haven't fully committed to him, even though he's a really efficient scorer. He can be picked on if he's going up against the other team's ones, but going up against other teams' second units, I think Colin Sexton's perfect there.
Chris Dunn and Colin Sexton would be a nightmare for other teams' second units and first units in some situations with the rest of the lineup around him. Colin Sexton, Chris Dunn, Kawhi Leonard. Like, that's a difficult 1, 2, 3 to get through.
And he gives them a speed element, that they're trying to do more of this year. But do they have the bodies? They're more athletic. They are, but he could
it's
really.
Because of like 2 guys were more athletic.
Yeah,
it's because of Derrick Jones Jr. and like that's about it.
He could give him a jolt in that area.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on. We will have any news about Colin Sexton's scuttlebutt or rumors here on Clips and Dip. Coming up, we're going to be talking Grizzlies versus Clippers, which. Worried about this one. If you're listening to us on audio, thank you so much. Leave a review if you feel like it. We'd appreciate it. And if you're watching us, thank you for watching us at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. We love the subscriptions. You can see my sweater if you watch us. You can see Adam's hat and dark void of a background. If you're listening on audio, there's going to be a quick ad break and then Clippers versus Grizzlies preview coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in. It's Clips and Dip. I'm Adam Oslin. We got Chuck Mockler here. No Will Updike, unfortunately, but the big three we'll ride again.
Oh, yeah. We'll be back.
Don't worry about that. It's the holidays. Things are tough right now, but things are tough for the Clippers going to Memphis to try to bounce back because the Grizzlies, regardless if they have Ja or not, are a tough team to play against. They are the only team in the NBA that's top 5 in both offensive rating and defensive rating.
Damn.
They have been that good. They're 12-3 in their last 15 games. That's tied for the best record in the NBA next to OKC, Dallas, and Boston over that span. So
good.
I don't know how the Lakers beat them the other night, but anyways, they're starting to play a little bit better, I guess, themselves. This Memphis team is serious.
They're very good. Ja will be available for the game against the Clippers. Per La Murray, Marcus Smart is out. Not only are they top 5 in O rating and D rating, Adam, they are top 5 in field goal attempts, which worries me when you think about this Clippers team and how we can get beaten that sometimes. They are second in field goal attempts, first in defensive rebounds per game, second in total rebounds per game, second in assists per game, third in blocks per game, third in opponent field goal percentage, second in opponent three-point percentage, and fourth in their own personal field goal percentage. Some stats that are lining up to make me worried about this matchup, I would say. However, turn the ball over slightly more than the Clippers do. This is 2 bottom 3 teams in turnovers. So I hope that we don't turn the ball over as much as we usually do against this team. Yeah. We might get I'm worried about this matchup.
Well, I will say this. A lot of the stats with them are influenced by the fact that they play at the fastest pace, so they have more possessions. So they'll turn the ball over because there's more opportunities to. Same with field goal attempts, defensive rebounds, and stuff. Like it's not a great matchup though.
Over.
Yeah, and the Clippers are 23rd in pace. So it's definitely contrasting styles. And if Memphis gets you playing their way, that's probably how the Clippers end up having more turnovers than them. They try to play too fast for their own liking.
That's a good call. That's a thing that we've noticed. You know, it's funny. I feel like that happened against the Blazers when we lost. We were kind of playing to that way early in the season, I know. But just that getting caught up and the let's keep up with these guys. You can do, you feel it in the beginning of the game. You're kind of going shot for shot. And then things start to go awry and you're kind of locked into that pace. Yeah, that's why I kind of, I wanted to highlight the field goal attempts thing because that is that's just a stat for me that I try and keep track of because that's pretty indicative of like how things are going. If the Clippers are trying to match a team that has a bunch of field goals, it's just a crapshoot because it's not the Clippers offensive system to have that happen. So you're kind of just hoping for the best with that.
And they're a good offensive rebounding team, which helps that stat for them.
Yeah, they are. Helping their offensive rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr. is having an incredible season. And I was worried about this matchup if John Morant was out, but now he is available. This is, they're what, second in the West? This is a nice time for Zoo to continue to cement how good of a season he's been having. Depending what we see matchup-wise, because maybe we start Batum and we have him on Zoo or we have him on Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zoo kind of plays that weird free safety role. But I'm worried about this matchup just because he's been playing so well.
Who's your starting lineup then if they start Batum in this game? Who do you got?
I would go Harden, Norm. Oh, that's tough. It's tough with Ja. Harden, Norm, Batum, Derrick Jones, Zoo.
Yeah.
Because then we have a
I don't
little
hate
more
that.
flexibility, but it's tough because the backcourt is troublesome.
Because they've
Just
also
defensive.
been starting Zach Edey.
Right.
So when they beat Golden State 144-93, their starting lineup was Desmond Bane, Ja Morant, Zach Edey, Jalen Wells, and Jaren Jackson Jr. It's a big front line, so
He
they
started
probably
last game too.
yeah, they probably have to start Nico against that front line.
Yeah, like it feels like so they got the good back court and then they have a gigantic front court. And I don't like where the Clippers are sitting matchup wise in between those two things, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a crunch. When there's a crunch with the starting lineup, that's when things don't feel good for this Clippers team because the bench, we don't know what we're going to get from the bench. They're the number one. The Grizzlies are the number one bench scoring team. I think that's maybe skewed how they're taking that stat because they've done so much shuffling of the starting lineup. But they're the number one bench scoring team. And I just, if the bench isn't getting stops, I don't know. This is a giant game for Zoo and Derrick Jones Jr.
I worry. I mean, in the starting lineup, it's probably going to be Zoo on Edey and Batum on Derrick Jones or on Triple J.
Do you start Dunn?
Start who?
Do you start Dunn instead of Norm just to deal with Ja? Or we've sailed past that variable being changed?
Man, this is tough. Because you want to cut off the head of the snake, but actually Jaren Jackson Jr. is averaging more points than Ja Morant this season.
Right.
But Morant does create a lot of the havoc. And if you don't start Chris Dunn, I just don't know.
It's not a good idea. I don't know if it's a good idea. It's just a question that popped up in my head.
It's like, if you don't start Chris Dunn, then Ja Morant gets it going. If you don't start Batum, then Jaren Jackson Jr. and Edey are going up against who? Zoo and Derrick Jones Jr.? Like, maybe
I love
DJ
Derrick Jones Jr., but he's smaller than Kawhi is.
Yeah. Like, maybe they would try him on Jaren Jackson Jr. because he does take 5 threes per game.
Yeah.
And they think they can get away with it, that he won't try to punish him too much in the post. But, like, Zoo's going to have to be on Edey to start. So he can't play Triple J. So you either have DJ or Batum on Jaren Jackson Jr. And if you have DJ or if you have Batum out there, then Chris Dunn's going to be coming off the bench. And therefore, who's guarding Ja Morant?
Norm? like James? Because Desmond Bane is also, like, that's what's annoying, is Desmond Bane is a perfect complementary to Ja against this Clippers team. There's another matchup nightmare for the Clippers, like the Houston. We can put the Grizzlies in the Houston Rockets category of shitty matchups, personnel-wise.
And they're like this against most teams, obviously. They're second in the West for a reason.
Yes.
I think I'm going to have Batum coming off the bench still to keep Chris Dunn in. The more I think about it, I'm going to see if I can get away with Derrick Jones Jr. on Triple J.
So we're starting 3 guards.
Yeah, but one of them is – I mean, it's the same starting lineup they've been going with, basically.
Yeah.
And Chris Dunn just came off a game where there's a reason Kyrie Irving went 6 for 25.
Agreed.
He played unbelievable defense. I think I have to have him out there against Ja Morant because even though he's not leading them in scoring by like a fraction of a point.
Yeah, they're basically tied, right? They're both at like 21 or something like that.
It's so close. It still stems from Ja creating mismatches often and bending the defense. So I think I'm still going to have Chris Dunn out there, which means now they could go Batum instead of Derrick Jones Jr.
I think they
might.
might.
Been starting all year.
Yeah.
Maybe they say, well, DJ's coming back from a hamstring injury, and that's our excuse for starting Batum over him. I don't know.
I think the Dunn thing, you're right, though. Dunn guarded Kyrie for 9 minutes. Again, per the incredibly wonky NBA stats matchup data, he went 2 for 8 against Dunn. He's coming off a great performance. That's a lot of time.
Oh, that is a big number.
That is huge. That's
that's just when he was ISO'd against him, basically.
Yeah.
I think I have to go. I think I've talked myself into going with Chris Dunn. But is there a way that you could still have Batum out there instead of DJ to go up against Jaren Jackson Jr.? I don't know. I bet he still goes with the starting lineup we just saw.
Yeah. I'm worried about Norm and getting in terms of the physicality. I'm worried about a lot in this matchup.
It gets worse the more we talk about
it. It really does. I know I put those stats up about what they're top 5 in, but once we've really been digging it, I haven't been thinking about it all day, except for I did the breakdown. So teams have the blueprint for making things difficult for Norm, which is be physical. That's not a crazy new thing, but we've seen it happen kind of recently. Yeah, we're going to need kind of all the stuff we talked about that was bad in the second game against Dallas to be the opposite. We need James Harden to control the ball. We cannot give the Grizzlies free points or free possessions. And we need both of those guys. We need Harden and Norm to combine to shoot. They need to be at like 37% from 3 together.
I wonder if they just try to hide James Harden on Jalen Wells, who is shooting well from distance, but maybe they try to hide him there, and Norm just has to play well against Desmond Bane and just has to take the challenge of guarding him.
Yeah. I wish Desmond Bane wasn't as good as he is. That would make me feel better about this initial match.
Yeah, he's good.
He's not bad. This one, it's gonna be interesting. We need Harden and Norm to combine for like 60. I genuinely feel that against this Grizzlies team, or pretty close to it. Let's call it 50.
The Grizzlies are that good. I think that's fair.
And we need Zoo, because Zoo's going to be tasked. Edie's incredibly physical. He's a physical guy. That's going to tax Zoo a little bit. So we talked about it in the first segment, but someone on the bench needs to not only score, but also play good defense, because the Grizzlies bench isn't really anything to sneeze at either. It has to be kind of Amir, I think. It's not going to be a backup 5. We're not going to have like a Mo Bamba game against the Grizzlies.
I felt like when they couldn't score in the second quarter against Dallas, and a lot of that was with the starting unit, by the way, I was kind of thinking, I'm trying Jordan Miller right now. I'm just trying to get somebody that can get to the basket.
If we need a bucket, when the Clippers need a bucket, specifically in that moment, yeah. Maybe he'll get to the line, but he's probably going to get to the rim. Isn't Cam Christie's traveling? Isn't he traveling with the Clips for this game?
Okay. In case of emergency, break glass for Cam Christie.
Yeah, he'll be joining the Clippers. Yeah, no, I don't know. But that's how difficult this matchup feels, is that we're talking about maybe throw Cam Christie. I don't know.
It's really bad on paper.
It's bad on paper. It is
really bad.
Is this one's not for the box score watchers. Do we have any other points we want to bring up before we pick our players of the game? Because I don't know. They do a lot of stuff well.
Yeah.
And again, the same people are out. Terrence Mann's out. Kawhi's out. Kobe's out. There's no real change to the injury report.
Yeah. No, I think the Clippers are going to have you're not winning this game if you're not playing at least your B+ game. against a team like Memphis?
I mean, this would be the Clippers' best win of the season, I think, pretty firmly. The Nuggets wins look worse and worse as the Nuggets keep playing. But this would, I think, kind of maybe head and shoulders be the Clippers' best win of the season.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, because the wins over the Golden State Warriors aren't looking as good either right now.
Bastards. Yeah, I don't know. So Will is not here to pick his player of the game. We picked Kevin Porter Jr. for him in an effort to light a fire under the young man. Didn't really work out. Hot and cold, let's just say. Let's call it hot and cold. I'm sure we'll be yelled at for that. Who is William picking for the player of the game for this game against Memphis?
I think Will has Mo Bamba for this game.
Get that productive 9-minute shift, 5 boards, 2 points. Plus
the
one.
Size with Memphis calls for a big Mo Bamba.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Standout game.
Who is your pick for player of the game? And if you're new to the show, we are not allowed to pick James Harden, Norm Powell, or Ivica Zubac, because we would just rotate between those 3 guys every game.
I will go with. I picked him recently, but I still like him. You know what? I'm gonna go Batum.
Hey,
I'm gonna go Nico Batum in this game. 3 threes.
3 threes and good defense.
Great defense.
All right, so you're going Nico. I gotta go Dunn, man. This is a game to showcase just how good he is defensively. I don't care if he goes 1 of 4 from 3. If he plays good defense against Ja when they're matched up and he holds them to below his averages, I'm happy with it. Then it's on everybody else to do their job. But I would be ecstatic with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of terrified right now. I gotta be honest.
It doesn't feel very good. It's gonna be interesting. That about wraps things up for this episode of Clips and Dip. If there should be, with all the smoke going towards Kawhi Leonard's return, if there is any news in regards to it, we will be live. Perhaps I will be annoying my family by being live during a special moment. I don't know. The next injury report will come out, for those of you who look for those things, on the 26th. Will be, I believe, the next injury report for the Clippers ahead of their matchup with the Warriors on the 27th. We'll have content for you. Reviews and subscriptions really help us out. If you'd like to review us wherever you listen to podcasts, we need it. We appreciate it. If you saw the power go out last stream, that's what happens when you don't give us reviews. I can't pay my bills. I have a real job. It's not that big a deal, but we would appreciate them. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. Adam, one positive thing after we just maybe did the opposite for the game preview against the Grizzlies. One positive thing to send these listeners out on one of the big holiday weeks.
I mean, even if the Clippers lose, they're still 16-14, and Kawhi might be back on Friday.
Hey, I'll take it. We should all take that. That's not bad.
If the Lakers can beat Memphis, the Clippers can beat Memphis. Come on.
I love it. All the transitive property logic is working here. We're feeling good. Maybe we'll have a post game for you tomorrow. I'll see where I'm at on that. I did pay my light bill, so the power's back on. Thank you everyone for hanging out. Yeah, let's get through this holiday. Let's get through this game in Memphis. And here's to Kawhi returning. Hopefully on Friday we will have any news coming from that. We'll have some content for you. Thank you for hanging out. And as always, let's go Clips.